Rafael Nadal walked onto live television, looked straight into the camera, and said the one thing that every Filipino fan had been screaming into the void for months. Aryna Sabalenka had called it luck. Nadal called it something completely different. And when the man with 22 Grand Slam titles, the greatest clay court warrior the sport has ever produced, decides to stand up for a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines on international television, you do not scroll past that. You stop. You watch. You listen. Because what unfolded next did not just spark a debate in tennis circles. It detonated a global firestorm that ripped through social media, sports journalism, and the hearts of an entire nation, and the tennis world has not recovered since. Stay right here, because this story reaches far beyond the baseline. This is about respect. This is about legacy. This is about a girl who bled for every single thing she has, and a world number one who almost made the mistake of dismissing it as coincidence. But first, do you actually know who Alex Eala is? Because if you only discovered her name through a controversy, you are missing the most important part of the story entirely. Alex Eala was not born into tennis royalty. She did not grow up with a private coach, a clay court in her backyard, or a pathway paved with guaranteed opportunities. She was born in Quezon City, Philippines, a country where tennis is not a religion, where facilities are not abundant, and where making it to the WTA Tour is not just difficult, it is borderline miraculous. She earned her spot at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain at 12 years old through nothing but raw, undeniable ability. Think about that for a second. 12 years old. Alone in a foreign country. Learning to compete against the very best junior talent Europe had to offer, in a language that was not her own, in a system that was not built with her in mind. She sharpened her left-handed serve, refined her footwork until it was surgical, and developed a tactical mind that reads a match the way a chess grandmaster reads a board. 3 moves ahead, always calculating, never panicking. She won the US Open girls singles title in 2022. But the WTA Tour? That was an entirely different monster. The doors did not just close slowly. They slammed. Qualifying round exits at Grand Slam after Grand Slam. 6 of them. A ranking buried deep outside the top 100. The kind of cold, thankless stretch in a tennis career where coaches start having quiet conversations with parents and players start having quiet conversations with themselves about whether any of this is actually worth it. 6 qualifying losses. 6 times she walked onto a court as an outsider, and 6 times the tour sent her home. And 6 times she came back. Then came Miami 2025. Wild card entry. World ranking of 140. The odds were laughable. Nobody outside the Filipino diaspora gave her a serious second thought. But Alex Eala had not flown to Miami to be a footnote. She had come to rewrite the entire story. She beat Elena Ostapenko, a former Roland Garros champion. She beat Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion. And then, in a moment that will be replayed for decades, she dismantled world number 2 Aryna Sabalenka, 6-2, 7-5, with a composure and ferocity that left the entire stadium speechless. In her on-court interview immediately after, Eala stood there trembling, eyes wide with disbelief, voice cracking as she said she could not believe she was standing on that stage. The crowd in Miami erupted. The Filipino diaspora, scattered across stadiums and living rooms and phone screens from Manila to Miami to Madrid, erupted even louder. And somewhere in Mallorca, a retired champion watching from home felt a wave of pride so overwhelming he simply could not stay silent. But here is where you need to pay attention, because what was Sabalenka doing during all of this? Stay with us, because this is where the story takes its first sharp, uncomfortable turn. Aryna Sabalenka is one of the most unfiltered, brutally honest competitors on the WTA Tour. That authenticity is part of why fans love her. She says what she thinks. She does not hide behind diplomatic non-answers. Usually, you respect it. But sometimes that same unfiltered honesty fires before wisdom has a chance to catch up. It happened during a live television panel discussion, a post-tournament broadcast featuring current and former players, where Sabalenka was asked directly about Eala's historic run through Miami. The question was straightforward. The answer Sabalenka gave was anything but. She shrugged. She smiled. And then she said that Eala's Miami wins felt more like luck and a favorable draw than genuine elite-level tennis. That beating Sabalenka on that particular day, given how she had been playing, should not be overstated. That the tour would adjust. That once the top players had enough footage, Eala would struggle to replicate those results. Was it a vicious personal attack? No. Was the framing deeply dismissive of a 20-year-old who had just beaten 3 Grand Slam champions as a wild card ranked 140 in the world, playing the semifinals injured? Absolutely. Because in that same interview, when the conversation turned to Sabalenka's own Miami title, her dominant run beating Pegula 7-5, 6-2 in the final, she spoke about it with full reverence. She talked about hard work, about pressure, about deserving everything she earned. But when a wild card from the Philippines did something arguably more astonishing, the word chosen was luck. The internet caught it within minutes. Clips spread within hours. Former professional Sam Querrey had already called Eala the biggest draw in women's tennis, bigger than Sabalenka, bigger than Goff. Steve Johnson had compared her cultural impact to Jannik Sinner's effect on Italian tennis. And now the world number 1 was on live television, reducing it all to a fortunate draw and a bad day from her opponent. The comment was heard in every corner of the globe, especially in one corner specifically. Because in Mallorca, Spain, Rafael Nadal was watching. And he had things to say. Rafael Nadal does not do drama. That point is critical to understanding why what happened next hit the entire sporting world so hard. 22 Grand Slams. Decades at the absolute pinnacle of professional tennis. And in all of that time, Nadal almost never threw shade, never engaged in press conference warfare, never used his platform to publicly diminish another player. He won through action, not words. Which is precisely why when he decided to use his words, every single person in the tennis world stopped breathing for a moment. First came the social media post. Nadal reshared Eala's on-court interview from Miami, the moment after her semi-final loss to Pegula, where she stood crying in front of thousands of people, tears streaming, voice breaking, telling the crowd that she had given every single thing inside her. Nadal reshared it. No caption. None needed. The message was absolutely clear. This is not luck. This is everything. But that post was not the moment that broke the internet. The moment that broke the internet came during a live Spanish sports broadcast where Nadal appeared as a guest commentator. He was asked about Eala's rise, her potential, the mentorship he had extended since she arrived at his academy as a 12-year-old with a dream and no guarantees. He spoke about her with unmistakable, almost fatherly pride. He revealed that after Miami, he had sent her a personal message, the very first time he had ever reached out to her directly. And she had not seen it for days because her phone was so overwhelmed with notifications that even a message from Rafael Nadal got buried underneath the avalanche. Then the host brought up Sabalenka's television comments. The luck narrative. The suggestion that circumstance had inflated Eala's performance beyond her actual level. Nadal paused. He did not smile. He looked directly into the camera with the measured calm of a man who has won Roland Garros 14 times and said, with complete authority, that nobody who beats the world number 2 as a wild card ranked 140 is lucky. That is not luck. That is preparation. That is courage. That is talent. And when people suggest otherwise, they are not being fair to a young woman who has worked her entire life for this moment. He did not name Sabalenka directly. He did not have to. Every journalist in the studio, every viewer watching at home, every fan clipping and sharing within minutes knew exactly who he was addressing. The clip reached 10 million views in under 48 hours. Filipino fans flooded every platform. Tennis journalists from every corner of the globe weighed in. And Sabalenka's comment, which may have been casually dismissive in the moment, was now a headline on every major sports outlet on the planet. But here is the deeper question, the one this entire story has been building toward. What does this actually mean? Because wrapping this up as famous legend defends rising star is the surface reading, and the surface misses everything underneath. Women's tennis has a geography problem that it has quietly refused to confront for years. The players who dominate the marketing deals, the primetime broadcast slots, the magazine covers, and the narrative space consistently come from a narrow corridor of Europe and North America. When a player from inside that corridor rises through the rankings, the word used is talent. When a player from Southeast Asia rises from a wild card position to defeat 3 Grand Slam champions in a single tournament while playing injured and ranked 140 in the world, apparently it requires an explanation. It requires context. It requires the word lucky. Nadal understood exactly what was happening. He did not use those precise words. He did not need to. But what he communicated on that broadcast was a statement about what respect looks like in professional tennis, and what it looks like when it is quietly, casually withheld. He had watched this girl train since she was 12 years old. He had seen her lose. He had seen her doubt herself in the long, grinding years when the qualifying losses kept piling up and the ranking refused to move. He had seen her stay anyway. And when she finally broke through, he sent her the first personal message he had ever sent her, because he understood the magnitude of what she had done, not just for herself, not just for the Philippines, but for tennis itself. The sport needed Alex Eala. It needed that courtside electricity. Those standing room-only crowds in Miami, Dubai, and Melbourne. That raw, fierce, deeply personal investment of an entire nation watching one of their own on the biggest stage in the world. And Alex Eala. She did not fire back on social media. She did not call a press conference. She did not need the drama. She went to Eastbourne and reached a WTA final as a qualifier. She went to the US Open and became the first player from the Philippines to win a Grand Slam main draw singles match, coming back from a set and a breakdown to force a tiebreak and win 13-11 in the third. Not lucky. Not circumstantial. Ice-cold, elite-level, jaw-dropping tennis from a 20-year-old still discovering her ceiling. She entered 2026 ranked 31 in the world. A seeded player at a WTA 1000 event for the first time in her career. Standing room-only crowds at every venue she entered. After losing to Coco Gauff 6-love, 6-2 in Dubai, she stood in her press conference and said with stunning, almost disarming honesty that there was still a clear gap between her level and Gauff's level, and that she had work to do. No excuses. No spin. Just clarity, accountability, and the self-awareness that real champions are built from. That is not a girl riding luck. That is a girl who knows exactly where she stands and is doing the brutal, unglamorous, thankless daily work of closing the gap. Sabalenka eventually addressed the controversy, briefly, carefully, acknowledging her words had perhaps landed harsher than she intended. She stopped short of a formal apology. Whether that was sufficient depends entirely on who you ask. But Nadal's response had already written the dominant narrative, and every match result since had backed it up, point by point, game by game, tournament by tournament. So here is the question we want to leave you with, and we genuinely want to know your answer in the comments right now. Was Sabalenka's comment simply honest competitive analysis from the world's best player, or was it something more uncomfortable that the tennis world is not quite ready to say out loud? And what does it reveal about this sport that it took Rafael Nadal speaking on live television to make the rest of the world truly stop and listen? Alex Eala did not need Rafael Nadal to validate her. Her racket had already done that. But in a world where respect is not always extended freely, especially not to a 20-year-old wild card from a country that tennis largely overlooked for decades, it mattered. It mattered enormously that the greatest champion the sport has ever produced stood on live television and said plainly, "This is not luck. This is real." Sabalenka may hold the world #1 ranking. But on that day, in that moment, the conversation belonged entirely to Eala, and to the man who believed in her long before anyone else on this planet did. If you made it to the end of this video, you already know this channel is built differently. We do not do highlight reels. We do not read box scores at you. We find the story underneath the story, the drama, the emotion, the human moments that reshape careers and redefine conversations. If that is the content you have been looking for, subscribe right now and turn on every notification, because the story we are telling next, it might be even bigger than this one.